Welcome back, guys. Thanks for taking the time to spend a little time with me. I always appreciate that. And Steelers Nation, you knew I had to do a quick video to talk about this topic that has popped up today. I mean, this has been a story that's been circulating for several weeks now, whether it's been Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, or Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, whoever. We all know that the stories have popped up and percolated, and they've talked about, one of these quarterbacks making their way to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, what's hot off the press right now is we have a report from long-term Steeler beat writer Gerry Dulac. And Gerry Dulac is saying, he's reporting that Russell Wilson will be meeting with the Steelers prior to the start of free agency. And according to Dulac as well, Russell Wilson has expressed interest in playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is interesting for a couple reasons. Not interesting because Russell Wilson would like to play for the Steelers or Russell Wilson actually playing for the Steelers. No, that is not interesting because, again, this is one of the names that's been out there in terms of free agents, veteran free agents, if the Steelers want, to go the veteran route. That's not surprising, but what is surprising and curious, what exactly happens to Kenny Pickett in this scenario? I've expressed this on my podcast, shameless plug, Terrible Towel Tuesday, every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the channel. Come tune in live. However, I have said it as well, that what I'm about to say to you now is what I think happens to Kenny Pickett if Russell Wilson comes to town. If Russell Wilson comes to town and he is on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster, that to me spells doom for Kenny Pickett, because there in no way, shape, or form do I think Russell Wilson comes to Pittsburgh as a backup. I just don't believe that. Russell Wilson can still play. Yes, he's 35 years old. He'll be 36 later in the season. However, Russell Wilson, I believe, would like to play and be a starter. I don't believe Russell Wilson comes into Pittsburgh with the same quote-unquote scenario as Mitch Trubisky. Now, we don't know what Mitch Trubisky was told before he was signed, but obviously he thought he was going to be the guy, or at least he had aspirations to do that. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers go and they draft Kenny Pickett. And then from that point on, Trubisky was able to play, had somewhat of a short leash, didn't play as well. Here comes Kenny Pickett. I don't think that's the scenario with Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson comes to Pittsburgh with the intention to be the starter. And if that is the case, what does that say about Kenny Pickett? Going into his third season, where that third season is supposed to be the magical season, that puts a huge damper on his future. That puts a huge damper on the ability of him getting the fifth-year option. Because when would he, quote-unquote, play to prove his worth? That would also add, that would have me ask the question as well. When Mason Rudolph came in this past season, and played extremely well for his standards and for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense standards, because it started to move the ball and put up points, did that say something about Kenny Pickett there? Did the Steelers then look and say, look, he's not the guy? That would be a question of mine as well. If somebody like Russell Wilson comes in, have the Steelers, the ownership, Mike Tomlin and whoever else, have they already identified Kenny Pickett as not being the guy? Even though Art Rooney II, as well as Mike Tomlin, have come out this offseason already and said Kenny Pickett will have an opportunity to be the guy. He's QB1. Again, some people are going to say, well, why would you say that and then turn around and do something different? Well, here's the reason why. Number one, I don't think ownership and or head coach is ever going to tell you exactly what they're doing when it's something of that magnitude. So I don't understand why we as a fan base always think they're supposed to tell us their exact intentions. Nobody's going to do that. Number two, things change. Sometimes better options mean a different strategy. It could be that simple. I don't know, but these would be all questions I would have if, in fact, this time next week or whenever it happens in the very near future, if Russell Wilson becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler, then I'm going to come back on here and we got more to talk about. Those would be my questions. I think if he signs, that is the end of Kenny Pickett. But here's the real question. What does that mean for the future at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Again, I just told you Russell Wilson is 35 years old. Are you going into this expecting him to be your franchise quarterback for the next 5 years? Are you expecting him to play through 40? You understand what I'm saying? So what would be your long-term goal if Russell Wilson comes in and takes the job? Are the Steelers back at the drawing board again come next draft? Or this, you see what I'm saying? Now, I don't think if Russell Wilson comes in, I don't think they draft the QB at all this year. Maybe late just to get another guy on the roster. You know, especially if they can't get Mason Rudolph back. But what does that say about Mason Rudolph? If they bring in Russell Wilson, if you are Mason Rudolph, do you resign? So there's a lot of questions at play about the quarterback position, maybe even more than they were just a few days ago with this recent report by Gerry Dulac. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and you know I'm all here for it. Do I welcome Russell Wilson? Sure, why not? You know, if they've decided that he's going to be the best option and they're just going to go for the now, and I'm open to that. I'm not married to pretty much any player on the team. There are some favorites that I have on the Steelers team, even right now. Love me some Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and Minka, those type of guys. And for whatever reason they want on the team, I'd be a little upset. But anyone else, man, I mean, listen, even if I like you, it's about making the best decision and putting the Steelers roster in the best position to win. So that means the end of Kenny Pickett. It is what it is. I'm always going to root for Russell Wilson. A lot of y'all know that I'm a big fan of Russell Wilson. He's from my hometown. I say that all the time. And let me say this really quick before I go. What the Steelers would be getting in a Russell Wilson in 2024 over Kenny Pickett. Well, for one, just this past season, even though Denver didn't do that great, they started to make a push late. Russell Wilson threw for over 3,000 yards to be exact. Hold on, I have the numbers here. Russell Wilson threw for 3,070, 19th in the league. You know, not at the highest point, but way higher than Kenny Pickett. 26 touchdowns, 9th in the league. Only 8 interceptions, which he was tied for near the bottom. Near the top. So that wasn't too bad. What I'm saying is he only threw, 8 interceptions, and some people could say that's high or some could say that's low, but that's not too bad. Under double-digit interceptions, it is what it is. And they have him at a rating, a QB rating of 98. It says QBR was 50.7. That's interesting. But again, if you just look at the statistics itself, 3,070 yards, 26 touchdowns versus 8 interceptions. That is already light years ahead of what Kenny Pickett has been able to do statistically. And again, this is coming from somebody who continues to say, hey, I'm in favor of giving Kenny Pickett a third season with a new offensive coordinator. Last hurrah. If it doesn't work, then we move on. But again, sometimes things change with your options. So if the Steelers feel like the best option for them in current day is to go with a guy like Russell Wilson, who presumably may not cost that much because I believe Denver still owes some money there, he may be willing to sign at a cheaper rate. And if that is the case, I believe he's coming in to start. And if that's what they choose to do, I'm here for it. But y'all know I had to come talk about it, and I really want to hear you guys' thoughts and comments. So make sure you definitely leave your thoughts down in the comments. Let's talk about it. See what you guys feel. But all right, man, that's all I got today as far as news. If anything else breaks before Tuesday, I'll be back at you with something else to talk about. But yeah, man, let me know what you think about this situation. And before you go, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.